Hi, everybody. I'm Stellaroseallday. Welcome to my live. Today is Saturday, August 10th, and yeah, I just wanted to check in with everybody. I hope you're doing good. I'm doing good. Cupid's doing good. Um, so I wanted to just have a conversation with the followers and the members and the fans. Um, So, just some housekeeping, some house rules first. My chat is members only mode. So, if you want to chat with me, you have to become a member on my channel. Trigger warning, we talk about some pretty dark things sometimes on this channel. I am a true crime author, and sometimes we talk about sexual assault, homicide. Not all the time, but I mean it is referenced in my lives. So if that's something that you can't handle, please, just I don't know. I wouldn't advise. It's like parental advisory caution for the content because we talk about all different types of adult content in here. So, Mercury's in retrograde. Mercury went retrograde on August 5th, and it's retrograde for 3 weeks. So that means that Mercury will not get out of retrograde until the 25th of this month. And Mercury normally retrogrades, like, I don't know, I think 3 times a year for 3 weeks at a time. And so, like, I'm not an astrologer. I wish I was an astrologer, but that's just, you have to, like, really know what you're talking about when you're doing astrology, and I don't. I read my horoscope, and I keep track of, like, Mercury retrograde and, like, things like that, but I'm not an astrologer. I just know that, like, when Mercury's in retrograde, it's like everything with the REs, like recertify, recheck, refuse, redo, rewrite, relax, um, things like that. And it's also like, and people go, oh, Mercury's in retrograde. Well, there's people that are born under Mercury retrograde, and it actually happens to be like a small celebration for them when it does happen. So it's not always like you're doomed if Mercury's in retrograde and you just lay down and die until it's over. That's not really the point of it. Like, Mercury retrograde is an opportunity for the universe to, like, because it causes delays, like it's intentional delays, and so it causes the universe to get caught up on things. So that's why they revisit things during retrogrades and, like, revise things during retrogrades, because it's a time to get caught up on things that maybe weren't taken care of the first time around. Okay, so Mercury's in retrograde, and then we had the Lionsgate portal on August 8th, which was 2 days ago. So what happens in, like, a Mercury retrograde situation is that when Mercury retrogrades, it starts going backwards. Well, not really. They say that, but that's not really what happens. What really happens is that it slows down, and then, like, we're passing it up, so it appears that it's going backwards in the sky, but that's not really what's happening. But in any event, I guess the many articles that I've read want you to refer to it as, like, the planets going backwards. And anyway, so the line in, like, things like communication, computers, transportation issues, and things like that. But if things don't come to the light and things don't have to be confronted even by the universe, then broken systems just ensue. So there are times where we just have to, allow the universe to do its own cleanup or whatever, And so um I want I didn't check my volume. Sure my volume's up. Yes, my volume's up. Okay. So basically, the other thing is, okay, so like we have the Lionsgate portal. So, August right now, happy birthday, Leos. Leo the lion, right? And so, what the Lionsgate portal is like every year on August 8th, which is 8/8, an energetic portal opens. And then it's like a, it's like a, it's like jumping timelines in a way, and it's bringing in like a different type of an energy. And so like with Mercury retrograde, what I was trying to explain before is that it starts retrograding. It starts like they have a pre-shadow period and a post-shadow period. So if you look it up, like Mercury retrograde dates, shadow periods, I know there's somebody out there that actually does the calendar, and I want to say it's like 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after, and that's like the pre and the post shadow period, because like they advise not to start anything new during a retrograde because the energy is like a weak energy, but it's more of a time to like reflect and then like revise what you already have going on. And then it lasts up to 2 weeks after too, so it's like a shadow period. And so, you know, if you're somebody who does, energy work or things, or interested in energy, because that's all that we have is energy, then those are things like I pay attention to. Okay. And so basically, like with the Lionsgate portal, because it only comes around like once a year, and and it was literally 8/8/8 because August is 8 on the 8th, and then 2024 makes it an 8. So it's an 8/8/8. Okay. But like in the year 2024, the 8 is broken up to like a 2, a 0, a 2, and a 4. And so, but it's still an 8, and like 8 is the best you can get because that's the infinity symbol, right? So 8/8/8. So on the Lionsgate portal, it is said to open up energy that's like extremely powerful, and it's also it's Lionsgate because it happens in Leo, and so you know how lions are, and so they roar. So pay attention to things that happen around this time, because it's things that would be, well, here, I'll give you an example. So I I I had to call on a welfare check on one of my neighbors, and I never had to do that before. And I was like contemplating if I should or I shouldn't or whatever, but like just to give you some background information, and this kind of blends into the whole Aaron Carter thing too, because we're going to talk about welfare checks. It was on my list of things to talk about today. So what happened is like my other neighbor asked me, like during the week, they were like, "Hey, have you seen so and so?" And I was like, "No, I haven't, at all." And like normally you would only see so and so. This is like neighbor so and so. Like I think, in my opinion, the person suffers from like sundowners, because the neighbor, only comes out like at night, which is like sundowners, because they come out after the sun goes down, and that's why they call it sundowners. For whatever reason, I don't know the scientificness of it. But I'm like, but normally you only see that person, blah, 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 blah. But no, no. And then the other neighbor says, well, hey, question for you. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, do you notice a certain odor being emitted in, like, in, like from that apartment? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, it's definitely something, and then, like, but I'm not thinking Dahmer or anything like that, and I'm like, but the person that lives there is like a known hoarder, and so, like, it really didn't surprise me, but, like, at the same time it was a different smell besides just garbage, and so I'm like, so yesterday, I mean, I was talking to the maintenance guy and I was like, hey, I'm like, I was wondering, could you go and check on, the neighbor? Because I don't know, it's just like, it's something, it smells weird. Haven't seen the person. And the maintenance guy goes, oh my God, do you see all these gnats? And I'm like, yeah. And then they're like, wait, the maintenance person goes, wait, they're coming from that apartment, the neighbor that nobody has seen, the Alzheimer's neighbor, alleged Alzheimer's. And I'm like, well, that person leaves garbage out in the hallway. And so the maintenance guy goes over and goes, well, it's food. And I'm like, I'm it's normal. Like, it's been reported to the office many times because it's a see, it's kind of like a weird thing because it's like a senior moment and you're kind of caught in between, like, well, I don't want to get this person in trouble, but at the same time, that's almost like a cry for help. And so I'm like, I don't really know what to tell you. I don't have an opinion about it because it it's a concern, but, like, can you see if that person's struggling on the inside, since, like, now there's, like, food outside and, like, bugs and stuff? It's like, and there's an odor. Like, this isn't rocket scientist, you know what I'm saying? Like, your maintenance, you're running this property. That's something that, like, is a cause for concern. Like, you can enter if you wanted to or whatever, but I can't tell you how to do your job. I can only say that, yeah, it's something's this problem there. So the maintenance person knocks on the door, doesn't see our neighbor, doesn't make contact, just was like, oh well, and walked away. And I was like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I know that there's been times where people have been over there to, like, take garbage out and clean and stuff, because, like, allegedly the person's a known hoarder, but, like, has, I think, assume family members that come and adjust that, I guess. I don't know. So um the the maintenance guy said, well, I don't know, I was in that apartment not too long ago because we had to do a property inspection, and I don't understand how that even passed inspection. And I was like, okay, I didn't get into the details because, again, not my business or whatever. So then I turned back around to go back into my apartment, and, like, I see all these gnats, and I was like, oh no. I'm like, I can't, because, like, I'm not with the bugs. I don't like bugs. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm real clean, everything very clean. So I was like, okay, so killing them, trying to get them out of the way, run inside, Google, how do you kill gnats or whatever. Okay, get my spray bottle, spraying everything, taking quick action, you know, then when I have to take the dog out, I bring my spray bottle with me and I'm just spraying them, because they're like they're in the hallway. So I just went back and, like, that was it, called it a day or whatever. Then this morning when I got up to take Cupid out to go to the wee wees, I was like, oh my God, when I got into the hallway, because it was like a lot of gnats. And so I walked past the neighbors, the alleged Alzheimer's neighbor's door, and it was like bugs, like an infestation, dude. And there was open food containers with bugs in it outside her door. Okay. It's a lady. I did say her. I won't say her name. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, what happened there? You know what I'm saying? Like, I saw the bag yesterday when the maintenance guy goes, there's a bag of food outside of the door. And I was like, yeah. But like, I was thinking like DoorDash or something, like how DoorDash delivers and will like leave it outside your door if you want or whatever. I didn't realize that he was talking about an open bag of food because I didn't look. It's, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't my problem. I didn't realize he was talking about an open bag of food and like I didn't see it. And so I was like, holy crap. I'm like, now that's been there for 2 days. And I'm like, but nobody has seen this person. So I'm like, I don't know, and so like I email the office. I'm like, hey, I'm really worried about, neighbor, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, there's something, you know what I mean? It just like things were, I'm like, there seems to be a bug infestation. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, I know maintenance was there yesterday, but like, there's also this odor that's coming from the apartment. Not sure, and so and then I'm like, well, wait a minute. I have the emergency maintenance number, and like the maintenance guy does live on site and he was home. So I call the emergency maintenance number and I was like, hey, yeah, I was like, and I described the situation. I'm like, it's concerning now, because it's like it's affecting everybody in the hallway. And it's got to be getting into everybody's apartment because they were getting into mine. It wasn't like 100 of them, but it was like enough to be like, no, I don't live like this, So, and like it's just dirty because it like carries disease and stuff, you know what I mean? So like first thing I did was like crank the AC way, way, way down, put clothes on Cupid, get him his heating pad because you have to get it like real cold because they don't like cold. And you got to make it very dry because they don't like that either. They want hot, wet, and damp. That's why Florida has so many bugs. So I make more of the spray. I'm doing the vinegar traps or whatever, and then I was like, wait a minute, I don't know, I just, I don't know what to do because this happened. It happened like, I want to say about 2 months ago. There was another elderly lady who lived down the hallway and by herself. And like, I would normally go in and just check in on her every now and again and say hi, or you would see like she had, like a aide, like a person that like a home health care worker come, and like you would know the days and like you would know somebody was checking in, and so then, but that weekend I knocked on the door and like that lady always left her door open because she was in a wheelchair and she was handicapped. And like we live in a secure building, so if you leave your door open, the only people that are going to come in are people that live here on a regular basis, generally speaking. And so, but she left her door open because she was handicapped and like, she couldn't get up to go to the door, but it wasn't a concern. So I go to check in on her and it was a Saturday and the door was locked. And I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, where is this lady? Because like the door is locked and like I've never had it locked, only one time. And that was when she went to like some kind of physical therapy or whatever. And like they came and got her. But I guess I didn't see her bus or I didn't know her very well then. Anyway, so I had her aide's phone number, her home healthcare worker, So I called And I was like, yeah, I'm like, I'm like, so and so didn't open their door. I'm like, when's the last time? Or are they okay? Or she goes somewhere, and they're like, oh, she's fine. She's probably just sleeping. And I'm like, well, do you know for sure? I'm like, or are you just assuming that? And the lady in the home health care worker was like, well, if you think that that person could be dead, you need to call for a welfare check and call the sheriffs. And I was like, really? I'm like, oh, I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, is she got family? I'm like, I don't. And then the home healthcare worker was like, no, I'll call her. Let me see if I can get a hold of her. I'll call you back. Because I'm like, yeah. I'm like, now I feel like I don't know if that's really my place. So person calls me back and is like, oh no, she's fine. She's just laying down or whatever. Doesn't want any visitors or anything like that. Just she's not feeling well. And I was like, okay. I'm like, not normally, not normal, but hey, it's always one off or whatever. So I just went on my day. I was like, okay, well, she's fine then. And then Monday came, and I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, her home health care worker should be here. So I just wanted to see if she was feeling better. And so um I went to, her apartment, and I opened the door, and the door was open because I was like, she had an open door policy. And so I walk in, and I see the lady on the bed, and she was like gray. And all I could hear, like the home health care worker was standing over her bed because you could see the bed from the door. I could hear the doctor yelling, call 911, call 911. And I walked into that, and I was like, oh my God. And so, like, I motioned to the healthcare worker. I had my phone. I'm like, I'll call 911. And so I called 911. And when the ambulance came and the fire department came, they had to take her to the hospital. It was that she didn't have any water or food for 4 days. The last time she had something to drink was Thursday. And so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday morning, and I think it was somewhere around 8:30, maybe 10:30, somewhere in that vicinity. Didn't have anything to drink, laid in bed that whole time, and almost died. So I think the home healthcare worker lied to me, because if that lady was basically like dead, I mean, she ended up living, okay, but like, I've never seen anybody be gray before. I was like, real. So basically, I feel like the home healthcare worker lied to me, because if that person was so sick and could answer the phone when the healthcare worker called, why didn't the that lady who was sick just dial 911 herself? You know what I mean? So something happened there. But then, like, ever since that happened, I always thought to myself, man, if I would have called for a welfare check, maybe she wouldn't have been so close to death. You know what I mean? So I thought about it. I took a shower, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna call a welfare check on my neighbor. I feel like in my gut, this is the right thing to do. So I called 911, and the first operator was like, what's going on, and I was like, well, I don't know. I said, I'm concerned about my neighbor. Nobody has seen her in like at least a week. Okay, could be almost two. I said, and there's bugs outside of her door, and they're um they're what did I say? Because they were like, the bugs were like infested on the door, like they're crawling on the door. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was grim. It was like grim. I'm like, and there's like odors coming out, and I'm just afraid that maybe, like, because she's a senior, maybe she fell, can't get up, or I don't know. I said I asked the maintenance yesterday to check in, but like I was standing there and he didn't come face to face with her or talk to her. I felt like he kind of just blew it off. And so I'm just concerned that maybe my neighbor is dead because I know that she's got a dog and I don't even hear the dog barking. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, so she hasn't taken the dog out, but like I don't even hear the dog barking. And so like I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. Like, is this a reason to call for a welfare check? And he was like, yes. He's like, I'll connect you with the police department. And I'm like, okay, because when I did welfare check on my dad when he was going through what he was going through, by that the police were already there. You know what I'm saying? So this was a little different. This was the first time I ever called because of like it was affecting me in my immediate environment. And so they connect me with the police department, but it was like emergency. And I told the lady, I was like, well, listen, I just want to let you know that, I'm not sure if this is the right thing for me to do or not, but let me just tell you what's going on. Ran through the whole thing with her. And she was like, oh yeah, the police need to come out. And I was like, okay. And so they're like, took my information or whatever, and I'm like, okay. So I'm like, better get dressed because I don't know, because the operator was like, they might want to talk to you. And I was like, that's fine. And so I get dressed and Cupid's got to go out anyway. So I'm like, okay, now's a good time to go out. So I go walk through the hallway and like I'm spraying, because I don't want the stuff to fall on me. I don't want the bugs on me. And I see an officer walking down the other corridor, which is like not my hallway, not our hallway. And it was a lady. And so I was like, ma'am, because I could only see the back. I didn't see the front of the person, but I was assuming it was an officer because like it was all black clothing, but I don't want to really assume. Anyway, lady turns around, it's a police officer, and I'm like, ma'am, and officer, and she walked up to me and she was like, where's the apartment? And I'm like, it's this one down here. And so she's like, well, what's going on? I'm like, well, it's a senior. I'm like, I don't know if it's senior moments or not. I'm like, but her car's in the parking lot. I go in, like, it's just kind of weird because like I don't hear the dog. I haven't seen the dog. She normally would take the dog out, especially at night. I'm like, so I don't know what's going on, but like there's bugs crawling all over. It smells. And she's like, okay, fine. And she's like, well, where are you going? And I'm like, well, I'm taking my dog out because he's got to go to the potty, and he does that on the grass. I'm like, but I won't leave the property. I'm like, because I'm concerned too. I'm like, but I do have to go outside, so I'll be back. All of a sudden, more police are coming as I'm walking out. I see 3 officers walking out. I was like, oh no. So now, then another one came, and I was like, oh my God. And then, so I'm outside with my dog, and the officer comes out and was like, excuse me. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, they're not answering the door. And I'm like, I mean, 9:30 on a Saturday, that's not, usually seniors go to bed early, but you don't know because the sundowners. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, well, we need to get into the apartment. I'm like, well, I don't work here. And they're like, well, do you have a phone number for maintenance? And I'm like, and this other lady sees me talking to the officer and was like, oh, so and so just left. And I'm like, yeah, I don't see their vehicle in the parking lot. And I'm like, but I might have the number. So I look, have the number, and the officer's like, call it. And I'm like, okay. I was like so scared because the officer was very authoritative. And so I was like, okay. So I call, And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, hey, I'm like, we have the police here at the building. I'm like, can you come back? No, I can't. And so the officer goes, because I had the speaker. The officer goes, give me the phone. And I was like, okay. Takes it off speaker and was like, yeah, I'm officer so and so. I need to get into this apartment. Can you come here? And I guess the person told him no. And so he goes, well, we don't want to force entry, but we're going to have to because we believe that there's a reason to call medical personnel. And I was like, oh man, I knew it, you know? And so I, so the officer's like, okay, next hangs up the phone. Next thing you know, they send the fire department out. And I'm like, oh no. I'm like, they probably think she died in there, you know? And I'm like, now I'm feeling really bad because I'm like, oh, I'm thinking in my head, how long has she been in there dead? You know, I'm like, they had to have found her dead. They had to have found her dead. But no, that's not what happened. What happened is they had to call the fire department out because they needed to get in, and the fire department had like a crowbar. I was like, oh my god, they're gonna break this lady's door down. I'm like gonna feel so bad if she's not dead, you know. Maintenance guy calls me back and he's like, hey, he's like, the property manager who's normally not here on Saturdays is gonna come. And I'm like, well, that's a good idea, you know. And then he was like, well, he said something, and I don't even know what he said, but I was like, listen, I said, I cannot have a conversation with you right now. I'm like, the officer asked me to call you. He spoke to you. You just said that the property manager was coming. I got to get off the phone with you because I'm not getting involved with negotiating with an officer. The fire department's here. I got nothing to say to you. You had an opportunity to talk to the police when the police were on the phone with you. I am out of this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know. So property manager came, and then I would say probably maybe like 20 minutes later the fire department left and an ambulance didn't come. So I was like, oh, okay, but the police were still there. And I was like, oh my god. I'm like, well, she must not be sick enough for them to call an ambulance. And but why the police were still here? And I was like, man, I'm just like, I'm like, I can't go back in. I don't want to. I don't want to be a part of it. But it made me think about Aaron's welfare check, okay? And so the thing is like, okay, so let's talk about Aaron's welfare check, okay? So if they would have gone in when the welfare check was called, they would have found Aaron's body, okay? But because they didn't make contact with Aaron, then that was to me a tip off that it was part of the whole setup, because a welfare check literally the officers that were here, okay, and there were 5 officers and a fire department that came, okay, that were here, made sure that they got in to check on the person and the dog, okay, because there was a dog in there too. And so I don't know what happened to the dog or the person. I don't know. I didn't. All I know is that when I walked back from once I saw the fire department leave, and like I knew that the police were dealing with the property manager, then I was like, well, they don't talk to me anymore. So I headed back towards my apartment. I saw the bag of food. It was still in the hallway, but like it had moved because like it was like by the door, but then it moved. So I don't know. Um I don't I didn't see the person that lives there outside. So I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that like I came back and that was it. So I'm saying that the officers that I dealt with today, they made sure that they could get inside to actually do a proper welfare check because they needed to see that person. In the case of Aaron Carter, what information do we have? The information that we have about Aaron is that the the information that we have about Aaron is that according to what it said in the tabloids or the newspaper, that when the police arrived and 911 calls, that it was at 2 p.m. I'm sorry, 2 a.m. It was at 2 a.m. on November 4th. It was so the realtor, allegedly, Chris, the realtor, is the one that made the 911 calls. And if you listen to the 911 call, what she's saying is that yeah, I'm calling about Aaron Carter, and I'm really worried. And then they're having a conversation back and forth, and the police, she says to the officer that, yeah, she's been in contact with you all day, asking you like what to do. And so it appears that the police were in contact with Melvin, and that aligns with the crime scene photos. Because if you look at the crime scene photos, it shows you right on the floor where Aaron died, okay? Right on the floor where Aaron died. It shows you that. So there's no way that Aaron Carter drowned in a tub because he died on the floor, okay? So and Melvin did put herself at the scene of the crime when she obtained allegedly Aaron's wallet from the Grinch coat. Okay, fine. So in the and then the realtor calls back and says, yeah, I'm just afraid the next time, something to the effect of, yeah, I'm just afraid that the next time you go out there, you're going to find him dead. And so they did a welfare check, but they never actually went inside or made contact with Aaron, because at that point they would have found him dead, okay, because he already died. But they had to have known what was going on, because the next day the officers heard saying that, does anybody have any Narcan, because we didn't have any on us, last night. Because at the same time that Aaron's case was going on, or around the same time, there were 2 overdoses at a house that Lancaster Sheriff's Department video record body camera footage and put it out on the internet, and it's part of Aaron's playlist and part of the first documentary, War of Angels, a documentary on the death of Aaron Carter, part 1. Okay. It's documented that they had Narcan and they saved the 2 teenagers, or the individuals, I believe they were teenagers, from overdosing because they had Narcan on them. But when it came to Aaron, they didn't have anything. They didn't have any Narcan on them. So how much Narcan does an officer carry on a regular basis, or in their car, or how that works, I'm unsure of. But I do know that there were 2 officers in the video that same night, and they both used Narcan to revive 2 what appears to be teenagers that overdosed. Now, do you run out of Narcan and then go back to the station and grab it again? Or I mean, I guess I would have to look at what time that was. But in any event, if they didn't have Narcan on them and they were at Aaron's house and they couldn't get in to see Aaron, what they needed to do was call an ambulance, because somebody can bring Narcan. But what we end up finding out is that instead of them making contact with Aaron, there were 2 men that did not seem friendly that were at the scene. And so they when they went to Aaron's house, they needed to speak to Aaron because Aaron was a single man and he didn't have the lady that was there. Aaron didn't know that lady from a can of paint, okay? So it wasn't like that was his wife, it wasn't his sister, it wasn't anybody, okay? So for somebody to say, "Oh, I talked to the housekeeper through the door and everything was okay," is BS, because if the housekeeper wasn't letting the officers inside and the housekeeper didn't own the home, then that means that if there's two men that don't seem friendly that are outside, then you need to call for backup, and you need to do the same thing where you call the fire department, okay, to open that door. Because if somebody's calling for a welfare check and some random lady is at the, even we don't really know what happened because they never made contact with Aaron. They haven't released any body cam footage. We don't know what happened, okay? All that we know that happened is that the homicide detective showed up and said that, and walked Betty Williams out the door, and said, "Oh, the medical examiner is the doctor is who determines the death in California," passes the buck over to the medical examiner. Medical examiner says, "Oh, this is a drowning." Okay, they found him in the tub and he's dead. Even though there's no water in his lungs, we're just going to say that this is a drowning. And so, my first book that I wrote, Shattered Windows, and I have it right here, Shattered Windows. The first book I wrote, this book is based on identity theft, okay? This is about a lawyer who stole my identity, and when he stole my identity, he also stole my inheritance, okay? And he committed identity fraud, okay? And in my second book that I wrote, it's called Hush Money, the sequel, I talk about there's no such thing as coincidences, because there isn't anything such as coincidence. A coincidence is a CO word, okay? So it's a co-word, all right? And so when you're talking about a co-word, that means it's a collaboration. It's more than one, okay? So a coincidence is two things lining up at once where it seems like it's happenstance, but it's never happenstance. It aligned because it was supposed to. Like, I was worried this morning that when I called the 911 for my neighbor, that, like, well, what if, like, she just, what if she was just celebrating last night and was hungover or something? I don't know. I don't really know anybody. I mean, I do, but I don't really know that person. Like, yeah, I've seen them in the hallway, but I don't know them, like maybe they're just hungover or something, for a bender. I don't know. But then when, like, the first officer came and then four more officers came and then the fire department came, I was like, okay, this is a reason why, like, okay, I did the right thing, because if it was nothing, they would have all left, or the other ones wouldn't have came, So with Aaron's case, there's a reason to call out what we have, you know what I mean? Like, so you can't, like, I can't go around accusing people of doing things unless I have receipts, unless I have evidence, okay? Like, I can't write a book about an international law firm stealing $125 million inheritance unless I have evidence to back it up. And because the judge wouldn't allow the evidence to be heard in that courtroom, I had to publish it. I had to. That was the only way I was going to be able to be heard, was to put the evidence in a book, because it was what I could do about the situation at the time. And so with Aaron's case, the reason why there's two books is because the first one was all the evidence that I published. And, that was, when was that? I think it was like May of 23. May of 23. Where are we? We're in August of 24. So it's been, like what, 15 months? Okay. Now, what happens is that the 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 sheriff, who is going to play their role in everything or whatever, so that's fine. They're like, this is my story and I'm sticking to it, and I'm the sheriff and I run this, and that's it. Okay, fine. But when you have overwhelming, compelling evidence that there was a situation that wasn't right, that does need to be investigated, and you present the evidence in a way where it can't be ignored. And so basically, with Aaron's second book, what it comes down to is, when I said, well, listen, okay, if this is the story that you want to say that happened to Aaron Carter, that's fine. You can say that. You can say, this is what happened to Aaron Carter, and we're going to write it up as an accident. We're going to say that he drowned in the tub and that there was no foul play. Okay, fine. You're going to say that. That's fine. You documented it like that. That's great. Okay. Now, being a researcher, a documenter, and doing my investigative work, I'm gonna say that's just bullshit. I'm gonna call you bullshit, okay? And like, I remember one time when I went to Vegas for a real estate convention, and at the time my sister was married, and her husband was like a poker player, like one of those poker players that like goes to like their bro's house and they like have poker night or whatever they do with the guys. And I wanted to get like airport gifts, I call them airport gifts, like tchotchkes or whatever. And I saw this shirt, and it was in the hotel gift shop, and um it said if you don't spot the sucker when you're sitting down, it's you. And it was like, Las Vegas on it, and it was like poker. And I was like, wow, I never would have like thought that, but it was so, I was like, man, that is so true. You know what I mean? And so it's like, okay, if the sheriff wants to blame everything on the medical examiner for what happened at Aaron Carter's house, then that's fine. That's what he wants to do with his job and with his authority and everything like that. But everybody has to answer to somebody. And so basically, like in part 2, what I've done is I've asked for an internal investigation, because if that's the way, if you can't rely on the police, then who can you rely on? And what I'm saying is that even the 911 call, that was from the realtor, that was all part of the setup, because she says in that call that Melvin, allegedly it was Melvin, was in contact with the police and finding out what to do next. What's the next step? Like, they're literally like walking her through it, okay? Because they needed the police to be part of the alibi. Because when you're talking about a premeditated homicide or a premeditated murder, I mean, if somebody's going to commit a murder and they don't want to get caught, they have to like map it out and go through every single scenario and be able to block every single door that if an investigation did ensue. Okay, that just, wouldn't you think that was part of it? Like if somebody was thinking about killing somebody, they're like, okay, well, what do we do with the body? Do we take the body? Do we hide the body? Okay. And so like the one of the biggest tip-offs was that who did the cremation, you know what I mean? But when you're talking about like a premeditated murder or a premeditated homicide, for you to have the police on your side, then that's big money. That's big money, dude. Okay, that's not small potatoes. That's big money. Okay, big money. All right. If the police really were on the side of, and I'm gonna say it was Angel Holansky because she was there as well. She was there within, what was it like? I think it was like, so they get Aaron's body on Saturday at 11. I think like the cleanup crew came in, and like by Monday they're unloading, or you know what I'm saying, or they unloaded everything and then they sent the cleanup crew in. I don't really remember those details because that was in part one, and I've been invested into part two at this point. But Angel Holansky was there when the moving trucks were there, which means she was invested in the project and she put herself at the scene of the crime. Okay. And like they always talk about that too. Like people who are a part of the crime, how they revisit the scene of the crime. And like that was, in my opinion, Angel Holansky and also Melvin. Now, as far as Lori Knight, the manager, this is so like while I was taking my sabbatical and healing, I ran across something and I want to read it. Okay. That's what I want to read. It says, what is a narcissistic sociopath? Okay. So I'm going to read this and then you tell me who you think it is. Okay. A narcissistic sociopath, also known as a narcopath, is one of the most dangerous and psychologically disturbed people. They display both narcissistic and antisocial personality traits, which is the worst combination of personality disorders someone can ever have. When the grandiosity of narcissist and the coldness of a sociopath, can you imagine how threatening they can be? To know how to classify a narcissistic sociopath in the room, I will reveal to you 10 traits of a narcissistic sociopath. 1, they are very charming but pathological liars. Check the Star said that Melvin was a pathological liar. Narcissistic sociopaths live in their made-up reality. Dude, Alibi was a total made-up reality about Aaron being a drug abuser when he didn't for 5 years have any of that on his medical records. 3, they are obsessed with power and control. Okay, watch Aaron Carter's lives from like 2020 forward and any interaction with Melvin. 4, narcissistic sociopaths' morals are non-existent. Just saying. 5, they have limited access to emotions. Okay, she did cry on it when she left Aaron's house. She did cry for about, I don't know, what was it? It was on TikTok, so it was a short minute. I mean, so that's limited access to emotions. That's all that's the only time you see Melvin cry was when she was in her BMW driving away and was like, my fiance died, which brings us back up to Narcissistic sociopaths live in their made-up reality because she was engaged to Mike Burke from 90 Day Fiance, okay? Not Aaron Carter. Okay. 6, they easily discard people. Hello, Aaron died. 7, they are very aggressive when threatened. 8, they feed off negative energy. Well, low vibrations feed off negative energy. 9, they do not feel any remorse when hurting others. The never full bag, let me just grab the wallet and use it for the next, 48 hours. I haven't told the cops they're called. And goes and buys a $2,800 purse on Aaron's credit card while he's laying dead in the closet. 10, narcissistic sociopaths are sadists. Okay, so I personally feel like that describes Melvin, and that would have been groomed from who I think Lori Knight. Now, interesting thing about Lori Knight. Wouldn't you agree that it was very strange that in the Fallen Idols documentary, they never mentioned Lori Knight? It's fallen idols. I say fallen angels. I apologize. Fallen idols, because I just think of Aaron as an earth angel. So I always want to put him like in the angel category. Even though his twin's name was Angel, it should have just been Angel Aaron. You know what I mean? Like, the twin should have been born with Nick, but anyway. So that's just my opinion. The thing is like, okay, Fallen Idols documentary, Nick and Aaron Carter, but they never in that entire documentary ever talk about the one common denominator between Aaron and Nick was the same manager by the name of Lori Knight. Now, why don't they talk about her? Well, allegedly, from Aaron's documentaries that he put on YouTube, it was that she signed a lifetime non-disclosure, so she can't say, right? She can't say anything, allegedly. So that's why she aligns like the BSB army or the BSB gang stalkers and has all these false narratives like the little Joker of pop or whatever on X, and like their little army of people that hide behind false narrative profiles and blah blah blah. But that's how big of a collaboration this was, okay? And so like I was talking to one of my friends, and one of my friends was like, do you think that the police are investigating you because of what you're doing? And I said, yeah, I do. I think they have been. I definitely feel as though there's more people watching me and what I'm saying than I would even realize, because again, you just can't go around talking about people that are employed with Disney and Sony and saying the things that I'm saying with, like, former presidents and stuff, and not think that you're not going to be investigated. I absolutely do think I'm being investigated all the time, because it's what I'm saying checks out. And so it's concerning, one, because this has been going on for a long time, and Aaron's not the first, this isn't the first time it's happened, but it's probably the first celebrity that they marked or wrote off as an accidental overdose that's actually being re-investigated by other authorities, because if the sheriff, the homicide detective that has 27 years at that time experience, wants to write that off as a drowning when there's no water in his lungs, and you can visibly see that Aaron died on the floor, then that has to be investigated. If we want that investigated, and we want that investigated because we have reason to, because the collaboration of what's been going on has been going on for a long time, going back to Michael Jackson, going back to Aaron Carter and Michael Jackson, and so that's one of the things is, having an internal affairs investigation. And so these things can take time, but I will give you an example of it doesn't take that long. Okay. So one of the things is, let me just put I'll just put shutter windows over there for a minute. Okay. So here's an example. When I was checking the news or whatever, and they were talking about the video that went viral, because they were talking about the United States Olympics, okay? The video that went viral of the swimmers that allegedly moonwalked to Michael Jackson's Smooth Criminal, okay? So now we have the United States, okay, in Paris, the United States swimming team, okay, doing a routine to a Michael Jackson song, okay? Out of all the songs that they could pick, they picked Michael Jackson, and the title of it was Smooth Criminal. Well, yeah, he is a smooth criminal because he keeps, they keep reinventing him or resurrecting him from the dead, so much so that they got the swimming team for the United States synchronized swimming, okay, using his music. Why are they doing that? Because they have his biopic that they invested all that money into to resurrect Michael Jackson not being a pedophile. Remember, there's no fat Elvises, so they just cut out the part about Michael Jackson being accused of pedophilia and also puberty, prepubescent boys, okay, out of the biopic, but they're going to resurrect him from the dead and then start the programming. And that's what's dangerous about the media doing things, because they're programming you. They want you to know that Michael Jackson was a smooth criminal. So like the video that went viral, I went and looked it up. Okay. I don't know if this was the Special Olympics or if it was the real Olympics, because I watched that video 3 times, and this is probably why it went viral, because I was like, they didn't moonwalk. Where was the moonwalk? It was like, yeah, there was a bunch of women who were in suits that were upside down in water, but the whole time they just had their feet crossed and like they moved around and the song played. But for me, that would not have gotten a go on America's Got Talent. Okay. So I don't know like what the deal is with like that sport. And like I don't even watch the Olympics because I'm not a competitive person. You know what I mean? I don't feel the need to like compete with anybody because I'm just happy being me. And so I'm not a sports person. So I haven't watched the Olympics because I don't care about the Olympics. It was the only thing that I paid attention to because it was a Michael Jackson, because it was Smooth Criminal, and because that was a total play on people's subliminal programming that they're going to be doing because they're trying to sell a biopic about this guy's life to change the narrative because they still want to sell his music. They don't want Michael Jackson to be canceled. They don't want Michael Jackson to be known as a pedophile. They don't want that. They're trying to sell his stuff, not get it canceled. But one thing I will say that I was happy about, now in the first book of War of Angels, I put in there about Safe Moon, and we're going to talk a little bit about cryptocurrency. So, okay, so for those of you who watched my 3.5 hour FBI video training video on Aaron Carter's uh, the conspiracy theory of Project Nightlight, which I believe Aaron Carter's murder there was a hired hitman. I do believe that they forced him to overdose. I do believe that the story that they're selling in the media by his entertainment family is a false narrative because they needed to have an alibi. Okay, but if you take into consideration how many people had to have been paid or had incentives to work on that Project Nightlight in order to pull that off, the collaboration of that big umbrella group is huge. And to say these people were paid under the table, okay, so like I'm sitting across from the FBI board that I made right now, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, all of the people that were involved, all of the bribes that had to have gone down, all of the money that was under the table. How did they do it? How did they do it? Because I'm going to tell you something. That's fine, Ray Lugo. You don't want to investigate the homicide. That's fine. But you're a county sheriff, okay? So basically when you decide that you're not going to, like I'm going to hold people to higher standards. And you didn't want to be held to a higher standard. You were like, bitch, get off my job. Okay, you're not going to tell me how to do my job. I get it. But it affects us as a nation when things like Aaron Carter's death is just going to be swept under the rug. You know what I'm saying? It disrupts everything, and it's the butterfly effect. That's why Aaron and the butterfly, because it's the Mandela effect. Because if you let this go, you're also letting Adam 22, Adam Grand Mason, whose dad is Philip Grand Mason, okay? Philip Grand Mason is linked back to former President Bill Clinton when Bill Clinton pardoned him for mail fraud that was in 1996. And Philip's brother, Joseph Grand Mason, who was co-chair with former President Jimmy Carter and also former governor of Georgia, okay? And so basically we have politics plus the media, okay? So so there was a lot of mouths to feed. So how did they do that? So in the first book, I talk about the cryptocurrency called Safe Moon, okay? And so I talk about, the if you're not going to investigate the homicide right now, let's investigate the money side. Because when it comes to the money, and when you're talking about the amount of money that was used to finance Project Nightlight, it's big money, okay? So that's a federal issue, okay? So in part 1 of War of Angels, I put in there that Safe Moon never registered with the SEC. Now, the SEC is the Security Exchange Commission, okay? So if you're going to be pulling money moves like they were doing, they needed to register that with the SEC because they're selling it like a stock, okay? And they didn't do that. So now, if you follow along on my community tab, you'll see where I posted that, because I asked for that, I got that. So the SEC is now suing the founders of Safe Moon because what they found was that Safe Moon mimicked a Ponzi scheme, okay? So but you have to go through the entire lawsuit in order for it to play out. So it's kind of like it's an allegation until it becomes a conviction, right? So we just got to the part where they're investigating Safe Moon as far as a cryptocurrency. And if the money that was obtained to finance Project Nightlight, if that came from Safe Moon, if that came from that form of cryptocurrency, then it's just going to take time to trickle down to, where basically like ATM Richie is, because that's like the low lying fruit. You know what I mean? So like when I went to the maintenance guy yesterday and I was like, hey, obviously that was he was working at a like a below that knowledge pay grade, because that person didn't have the knowledge to go to the office, which was probably, I don't know, 50 feet down the hall, and while the manager was on duty, have the manager go check on the person. How do you leave an open food container with bugs in the hallway if you're maintenance? And the manager was in the office. So why wouldn't you just go walk over and talk to the manager about it? You know what I mean? And so I didn't know yesterday that it was an open food container filled with bugs, or I would have went to the office. I just didn't even look, because like it's really none of my business if somebody dies in the apartment next door. You know what I mean? As long as they're not dead in here, that's all I care about. But I'm just saying, like, he didn't have the knowledge, or he didn't care. It doesn't get paid enough to care. I don't know. Was it taken care of today? Yeah, it was. But because it got to the point where it was affecting everybody in the hallway. You know what I'm saying? Like the neighbors all have to have gnats now in their apartments too, because they travel through the drains, they travel through the shower drains, they travel through the sink drains. Like I keep all of my drains closed all of the time just because I practiced that forever. It's like in the bathroom. Do you put the lid down on the toilet? I always do. I never leave the lid up. Never leave the lid up. Never leave the lid up. It's gross. Even like when you flush the toilet, stuff goes flying out like far. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's all germs. Forget that. But the thing about the fallen idols I read about was that it said that when this was dated June 28th, I believe the article, that a new survivor had contacted Melissa Schumann and was going to Melissa Schumann, and I think Melissa was helping the survivor with resources, like possibly a attorney or I'm not sure, but I think they have another survivor now that has come forward because of the documentary, because now that person feels comfortable. And sometimes it takes that. You know what I mean? Sometimes it takes that courage, you know. I think like now I know next time when I walk past somebody's apartment and I see like a bug infestation like that with a bag, I'll look in the bag next time. I mean, I just didn't even think to do it. Because this isn't like the type of place where we have problems like that here. You know what I'm saying? At least not since I've been here. There hasn't been an issue. So the same person that like I called the welfare check on, that person had totaled their car twice and then got a new car and already had smashed it up twice. So that's got to be some kind of a senior issue. You know what I'm saying? Because like they keep smashing up their cars, so they probably just shouldn't be on the road. But like, that's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, that'll be taken care of whenever that gets taken care of. That's not for me to get involved with. But now I know, like, the next time, just like when the last person almost died, I know, okay, now I can call, for a welfare check. But now I would have just went to the office. But hey, live and learn. So basically, right now the situation is that, like, let's just say the players that are in my conspiracy theory about the death of Aaron Carter, okay, let's just say that they were all taking bribes under the table, and it was through cryptocurrency. I mean, like, you have to spoon feed people the information. You can't assume that anybody knows their job. Like, the same property manager that I'm talking about sent out letters and saying something about the office, and it was a letter about the office and like the office hours, okay? And like in the memo they put office hours, so like she repeated herself, didn't even check that her document before printed off like 50 of them. Also misspelled the word Monday. How do you misspell the word Monday? You know? And like, I would say the office manager's probably in her late 60s, early 70s. So, I mean, I mean, but you learn how to spell the days of the weeks in like what, first grade, second grade? I don't even know, but I know it's like elementary school. You know what I mean? So like, I guess I would be expecting too much from that person to have the knowledge of when to call the police. And now that person will know when it's appropriate to call the police, because hopefully that alerted that person's family. I don't know. Hopefully. But I don't know, because there's a dog living there. So I don't know how that works with like animal control. Or I mean, the police were there, so it's up to the police to take care of that. I just hope I don't have to deal with it anymore. It's unfortunate, but I also like I was also grateful for the experience, because now it made so much sense looking at it from a different perspective of how important that welfare check for Aaron Carter really should have went down. You know what I'm saying? It's not an excuse to talk to somebody through the door. The officers needed to get in that door. They needed to consult with Aaron. They needed to make sure that Aaron was okay. And because they didn't, then I'm saying that they're they're part of it. You there's only two sides, the right side and the wrong side. That's it. There's only two sides. Okay. You know, um, are you on Aaron's team or are you team Aaron? You get what I'm saying? Because like after Aaron died, they talked about Aaron's team. And I was like, who are these people that call themselves Aaron's team? Who are these people? His publicists, these names, nobody, Kelly Summer, nobody's heard of these people. Aaron told everybody everything all day long. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care how many Aaron Carter videos you think you've watched, a new one will pop up, or you'll revisit it. You'll revisit one. Ones are coming up on my YouTube feed of like ones that I started watching, and then like I never finished for whatever reason, or I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like, but they'll come back up. He documented everything all the time. He even documented when he was at his doctor, him having a physical exam and putting it on record about him not having mental illnesses except for anxiety. And when you have anxiety, you also have depression. It's like salt and pepper, you know what I mean? You basically, Anxiety is worry over the future, and depression is worry over the past. So if you are a worrier, you're going to be worried about everything, the past, the present, the future, and that's, your nerves are basically out of control because you're not able to mentally balance yourself of living right in the moment, you know what I'm saying? And so, with Aaron performing at the age of 6 years old in front of, not hundreds of people, thousands of people, you know what I mean? And he would get what he claimed as stage fright. I mean, how would you feel? This is somebody who's 6 years old and like probably was just learning about emotions, how to process emotions. For the first year, you're learning how to walk, and then I think like the second year you get the food down pat, and then by the third year you got to go on the potty, right? So at 3 years, I think between 2 and 3 years old is when most kids are potty trained, and then like 3 years later he's performing on stage with a microphone in front of thousands of people, and people want to say, well, he had stage fright, he had anxiety. Well, what would you be like? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't feel like that's so unusual. Now, I feel like Aaron liked it. I feel like Aaron liked performing. I feel like, him being a child prodigy and him being a child star, I feel like it was not a mistake. I feel like that was the right road for him to go down. I feel, that was okay. I don't feel like we should do that every day, or that we should have a repeat of what happened to Aaron Carter. I feel like what happened to Aaron Carter was, in his, essence, was that he felt he was abused. He was performing, he was giving people his all, and no matter what, even when he gave everybody his all, he still got the short end of the stick every single time, and it never changed. It was like a cycle that he could not escape. And if it's a cycle that he couldn't escape, it's because he was being trapped in that cycle. Okay. Just like the internet told me to set up like this gnat trap, how to like trap the gnats, like so they're not breeding or whatever. Like, it gave me like a recipe how to trap them, and I made it, and it actually did trap them. And so but I set a trap for them, okay? And so basically that's what was going on with Aaron Carter. And I think it happened right when he turned 11 years old, and he spoke up about the manager molesting him. Because now these are Aaron's words, okay? So Aaron alleges that he was molested by his backup dancers. But when he talks about that, he still is performing. They're still performing. I don't know if it's because they were all around the same age. And like, I didn't have kids, so I don't know if boys, if like, I don't know. I don't know any about any of that, okay? I don't know. I know that my mom had the birds and the bees conversation, with each one of us at a certain age individually, and didn't rely on health class, but I don't really know how any of that went down because they still perform. So I don't know what it was written off as, like a once thing, or I don't know. Were they wrestling and it got too rough? I have no idea. I just know that it goes on and seemingly unreported. And then the big one was when he was 11 years old on the set of Jay Leno. He alleges that his manager, Lori Knight, who is Nick Carter's manager. Yes, Nick Carter, the Backstreet Boys manager, okay, still to this day, molests him and gets fired. So, but after that, you don't see Aaron Carter really too much in the public eye. He's still, he is, but it's not to what it was between 6 and 11. So now at 11 years old, Lori Knight gets fired. From 11 years old to 15 years old, Aaron is somewhere in between, like with, like you see pictures of him with like Beyond, Destiny's Child, Beyonce, and Britney Spears, opening for Britney Spears, and then comes Michael Jackson. He goes to Michael Jackson's house, the Neverland Ranch or whatever, right? And he goes with Nick for Michael's birthday party, and Nick leaves him there. And I guess Aaron ends up doing a sleepover. And what you do here is that it was documented that Aaron Carter said Michael Jackson was inappropriate one time, okay? Then came the hush money, all right, with what followed in the gifts. Also, if you watch Leaving Neverland, you'll see that the one guy in there, Wade Robson, whatever, Wade, I shouldn't say whatever, Wade, because it was important what he had to say. That was his experience with Michael Jackson, okay? You do your research on Wade. He also sold memorabilia that he had of Michael Jackson's into the hundreds of thousands, but we don't get a complete detailing of what he actually got from Michael as far as possible hush money. But we do know with Aaron. And so Aaron never in his lives discloses why he does this. He doesn't disclose that. He just does it. And that's what hush money is. You don't say. You just you stay quiet about it, okay? And so basically, Aaron was a very loyal person. He was loyal to Luke Pearlman, and he was loyal to Michael Jackson even after the alleged situation that went on. And so I don't know. There's another book about Aaron Carter, and that was published after he died. There was a couple, but the one that was, the unfinished book or whatever, it does talk about his experience with Michael Jackson, and maybe Aaron didn't want that. Maybe Aaron was, second guessing, talking about how Michael was in his underwear or whatever. Michael Jackson should have never have had his underwear on with Aaron Carter. It doesn't make any sense that you have a Neverland Ranch, okay, that you cater to children, okay, with rides in your backyard, and it's a mansion, and Aaron Carter sleeping on a cot next to your bed. For what reason? For what reason? I would think, like, I mean, why didn't he get like the second primary suite? You know what I'm saying? Like, why didn't he get that? Why is he sleeping on a cot next to you and you're in your underwear? As a grown man, you shouldn't be in front of a little boy at 15, and Aaron's a little boy at 15 in your underwear. No, I don't. That's completely a red flag, okay? But I mean, Aaron was a loyal person. He never went back. He probably accepted his hush money from Michael Jackson, and then that was it. He was like, well, I got paid this, and he got paid in the jacket and the glove, and then that was it. And like you don't hear about that. They want to say, oh, he didn't get the jacket or whatever. Well, that's not true. He wore the jacket at several charity events. Aaron did. Okay, so I have pictures, and I put that in the book, where Aaron is seen photographed in the coat as he's an old, as he's an adult, as he's getting, well, he didn't live very long. He only made it to, 34. But there are pictures of him as an adult wearing that coat for charity events. But okay, after the Michael Jackson problem with Aaron at 15, you don't really see Aaron again. Very much. He struggles with what happened to him as a child, and he struggles becoming an adult. And the problem is because Aaron's trauma was never treated, he became a broken man in many ways, because he ran around broken, just wanting to constantly, love people, but was so violated at such an early age. And when he goes to speak up at the age of 15 about his manager molesting him, and basically was shunned and was shut out and shut up, and then sees the brother, who also he claims also abused him, reach such great heights in the music industry, that Aaron becomes disturbed over the fact that him speaking in his truth and speaking in his power and taking his power back and saying, no, I am going to stand up for myself. No, I am going to tell my story. This is exactly what happened to me. This is what happened to Aaron Carter. This is why Aaron Carter's songs were not played on the radio. This is why the Backstreet Boys have gang stalkers. This is what happened to me. This. Sony owes me money. Sony's trapping him by not paying him so he could move on. Everybody that trapped him, everybody who blocked him from being able to move forward and to move on, we're all a part of it, okay? And it's a lot of people, and it's a huge collaboration, and it takes time to work through all of the red tape. When I did the FBI board, I didn't do red tape. I didn't do red yarn. I did neon yellow, and I still like it like that. But still, it's quite a lot of accusations and a lot of information that all needs to be backed up with evidence and then put in the right hands. Because I'm not going to put a book out and be like, I hope people buy it. I mean, buy it or don't buy it. I mean, you can watch the YouTube videos and I pretty much tell you everything that happens anyway, except for classified information that I can't put out there. There's been classified information that I've had to hand over to law enforcement that I could testify about, but I'm not going to put that out into the general public. It's not suitable for the general public, okay? I documented that I had classified information that I handed over, and I documented that part of it, okay? But all of that is necessary in order to get the job done. And that's what I said I was going to do for Aaron. And that's what I do for Aaron. I that's what I've been doing. And it's been working. So I'm not worried. I don't have a end. I don't have a time frame in mind for, when it's all going to go down. Or I think a lot of it will go down and you won't hear about it at all, because you're not going to get people who are going to talk about their companies, especially when they're, under the big umbrella of Disney, that are going to associate with articles referencing, Jeffrey Epstein or Ellen or Anne Hesh or Oprah or Gail or Bill Gates or, Adam Grant Mason, who probably flies under the radar because he's got the protection of his dad, Philip Grant Mason. Okay. And so, I mean, I'm not, I, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You know what I mean? So people that are sitting around wanting to know what timelines are and this and that and everything else, it's like, anytime you're dealing like with the authorities or law enforcement or the justice system, it's a hurry up and wait situation, right? So like you call 911 because it's an emergency, but then you have to wait for the first responders. And then the first responders come, and then you have to wait for what the fallout is after that. It's if they send somebody to the hospital, or if they have to call the fire department, or if they have to call this person. It sets off a chain reaction. It's like a domino effect, you know what I mean? So like the first book that I documented about Aaron Carter and all the evidence and everything that put in there, it actually a lot it was accomplished just from that, and then with the second documentary, the information that I've given out and things like that has set off a chain reaction too. But it's 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 a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. I had my one neighbor come over because I don't remember what we were doing, but I was like, "You just come in for a minute," because I was dealing with Cupid, and she was like, "What's that?" I'm like, "What's what?" That. I'm like, "Oh, that." I'm like, "What do you think it is?" She's like, "I have no idea." I'm like, "That's an FBI training video." I go about murders that have to do with the big umbrella Disney and Sony and all the areas and everybody that was involved and how it went from an idea to a collaboration to a RICO Act to money laundering to cryptocurrency to white collar crime to corruption in law enforcement to politicians and confessions. These are my confessions because they admitted to having paid off politicians. Okay, they admitted to it. They admitted it to me. And so that's evidence that I submitted to law enforcement and to lawyers because in every lie, there's the truth somewhere because it's a root. So, anyway, I just wanted to, check in and say, like, we've made progress. Maybe, like, I know I post things like on my community tab, and I do the best I can to, like, explain the why I post this, that, or whatever. But I haven't been on, but I wanted to jump on and get caught up with everybody and let them know, you know, updates on things. So, getting the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission, to investigate and then to file a lawsuit. A lawsuit's been filed, okay? And if you don't know, the promoters of Safe Moon was Jake Paul, Little Yachty, Nick Carter, um, Soldier Boy, allegedly, them being sued by different companies. And you ready to go? And entities and things like that. And it's a Utah company, by the way. Safe Moon was incorporated in Utah. We know who else is in Utah. And we also know that Aaron Carter's laptop made it to Utah. Okay. So just saying that there's a lot of information that is, there's a lot of components to it. You know what I'm saying? So, and thank you, people who do support the channel and who have an open mind and, who know that there's more to the story than what they're getting in the media and that, have big, you have big minds and you want to know what's going on. And so you look for the truth and you find it, And so, what do you do with the truth once you find it and once you have it, like what do you do with that? So what I do with it is I work with the system because the victim mentality doesn't work for me. If you can do something about it, then you're not a victim. A victim is what happened and somebody took advantage of you and you became a victim, or circumstances happened and you became a victim. But what did you do with that? But then what did you do with that? What did you do with that? It's got to be a learning experience, okay? So this is what we're doing about Aaron Carter, okay? This is what I'm doing about Aaron Carter. And for the people who support my work, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. The buying of the books and the words of encouragement and the members only subscriptions and all of it, the good vibes, and I appreciate all of it, And so should be proud of yourself, because not everybody can do that. Not everybody can do that. But the ones who can do, and the ones who can't teach, So I like to do both, though. I like to do it, and as I'm doing it, I am teaching you. You know what I'm saying? Because you got to learn by example. Got to learn by example. Otherwise, how are you supposed to know? I am not going to die going to the grave with the things that I know if it will help people. You know what I'm saying? Like I was telling my other neighbor, I was like, I know that I'm closer to the end of my life than I am from the beginning. And so, like, you get to a point in life where you're like, I don't want to hold on to stuff anymore. Like, I just don't. I don't. I want to use it. I want to get rid of it. And like, I don't want to store stuff. I don't want to buy a bunch of stuff that I have to like try to maintain. I just don't want to do it. You know what I'm saying? Because like, even like where I'm at right now, somebody else is going to live in this place. Somebody lived in it before. Someone's going to live in it after I leave too, like even my dream home, somebody will live in it after I die. And so everything is rented from the universe. All of the power is in the present moment. Okay. So I want all of the information about Aaron Carter to be out there and not wait on a book to be published. I want it to be out there right now. I want the transcripts to be able to be read. I want all of the things that I'm doing that I tell you they're already set in motion, already have been in motion, already. I'm not holding on, I'm not waiting. None of it. It's already in motion. Okay. And so I just don't think that, anybody's going to be able to outrun anything, but they can try. But you can't blame them for trying. They came up with a pretty good alibi, almost had everybody fooled. But like Abe Lincoln said, you can fool all of the people some of the time, some of the people all of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. Okay. So that's about it. I I feel good. And I mean, I don't feel great, but I feel good, I've had overcome like big obstacles with my health, and I'm very grateful for that. Very grateful for that. There's so many things that I have to be grateful for, and I'll have that conversation with God, Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, myself, okay, in the universe, like I always do. But thank you, everybody who does continue to support my work. I really appreciate it, and I'll keep you posted along, the journey, and we'll just see where it takes us. But that's it. I hope you have a great weekend. Namaste.